truth.
Okay, so I'm back. I just took a shit. My hand's covered in baby powder because it was messy. I'm gonna take a little break here, even though we really haven't done much with Red Dead Redemption. But we have played no missions at all, so hopefully nobody's got a problem with that. If you do, that's a problem. Where's the? I swear, it's like whenever I go offline, it's like there's mad fucking videos that I want to watch, and then I'll remember them. I don't remember them. Actually, some of them might be in my history. Some of them I started kind of watching. I was like, oh, this would be fucking good content to watch. First impression, whatever. React on Twitch. Blow it every now and then. Oh, fuck! I can't believe you've done this. Sage's Reign. We haven't watched Sage's Reign in a while.
The people who are capable of changing things are the ones who can throw away everything dear to them. When forced to face down monsters, they can leave behind even their humanity. Attack on Titan is a story of many themes and elements, one of which is how the series views humanity. When focusing on the military and its soldiers in particular, becoming one and becoming a Survey Corps soldier is essentially a death wish, as its fatality rate speaks for itself. These are positions and roles that essentially ask their members to sacrifice themselves for the greater good, a sort of utilitarian approach, which will in turn help save mankind. And Commander Erwin Smith himself is often at the helm of these sacrificial decisions, earning him the title of Devil or Demon. Erwin Smith's character in all aspects reflects his title as commander. His strong features, his imposing frame, standing at 6'2", accompanied by those piercing eyes. Even his voice in the anime, all of these radiate power and confidence. Past his appearance, though, he possesses all of the qualities a leader should have. He's decisive, brave, and intelligent. He has an eye for talent, as he sought out the abilities of Hanji, Armin, and Levi. Erwin understands his weaknesses and has surrounded himself with individuals who can make up for them. The commander is a solid fighter and a great strategist. But I think Erwin's greatest attribute is his charisma. People gravitate towards him because he has the ability to inspire and to capture their hearts. He understands what drives others and can appeal to their emotion. Only Erwin can lead soldiers to their deaths by capitalizing on their fears and their dreams, by understanding what drives them. Leadership at its finest. As this series has proven with Zackley and other high-ranking officials in the military, the people who lead only care for themselves. Other than Pixis, Erwin seems different than the rest. He cares about the lives of his soldiers. It's how he became commander in the first place. Erwin Smith isn't average, and he isn't selfish. A selfish man couldn't deem himself as replaceable. A selfish man couldn't capture the heart of a rebel and turn him into humanity's strongest soldier. But as the series introduces his backstory, we see where Erwin's true motivation is born. The commander's father had a theory. This theory was that the king had altered humanity's memories when they entered the walls, so that he could control them better. Erwin's naive self then spoke about this possibility to his classmates, and soon after, his father mysteriously died. From the moment his father imparted that knowledge into him, and was killed because of his own curiosity, Erwin has made it his duty to seek the truth of this world. As he says to Levi, finding the truth about this world was more important to him than humanity's victory. Erwin specifically says that there are times where he wanted to choose death and to give up on the world, but that the dream he shared with his father is what kept him going. And that wording in particular, the dream that he shared with his father, is what's important here.
I've missed probably a good couple weeks of Attack on Titan. The last thing I fucking saw was probably it was when they were in the plane. The kids hitched a ride. I think that was like the last episode that I seen. Dude, I need to fuck, I gotta catch up on so much shit. So behind on everything. For now.
Family is often the driving force of many characters in this story, and when these family members are no longer with them, these bonds become even stronger. It was the longing for Historia's sister, Frida, that almost made her eat Eren. Eren's mother being eaten before his eyes drove him, Connie and his mother, and so on and so forth. Erwin is no different. If this dream is the one thing that connected him to his father, and he was instrumental in his father's death, it's only human for the commander to want to have this tangible dream, this reminder of what he'd done as a result of his guilt. So avenging his father and redeeming himself drove him. This was his father's goal, and he owes it to him to see it fulfilled. But in that quest, Erwin leaves his humanity behind, becoming a demon for himself and for his father, as he sends off countless soldiers, countless comrades, to their deaths, all for his own dream. So that internal motivation is the backing behind every action and gamble that Erwin takes. Saving Eren, allowing him to join the Survey Corps even if he was a spy or even if he lost control, because he might be the key to getting to that basement, to getting to the truth. Overthrowing the monarch, sacrificing his own arm, Erwin has even put aside love and his own personal happiness to seek the truth, as he gave up on his future with Marie to pursue his dream. Erwin will stop at absolutely nothing for that knowledge, so he isn't called the devil or the demon for nothing. As Attack on Titan looks at humanity, it is fixed on the idea of human nature. Can a person truly sacrifice themselves and their interests, their dreams, for something that is greater than themselves? As the military always says, dedicate your heart. With that, is Erwin Smith selfish, or do his final actions make him selfless?
Uh-oh. Spoilers! But did I already see this part? Still has his arms.
He gets closer to his dream, Erwin contemplates that question. We see how Erwin became commander, how his dream brought him to the top of the command. Saving his allies is how he got to the top, but it isn't how he stayed alive. As they began the retaking of Wall Maria, Erwin has this inner conflict. He finally confronts this immense guilt that he carries. What was once confidence and unflinching dedication to himself and to his dream has become uncertainty. And it comes when his dream isn't a dream anymore. It's a reality, and it's so close to him. It's within arm's length even. But still that inner turmoil festers. The commander thinks back to all of the people he's led to their deaths, how many people he's told to dedicate their lives to humanity, and how they are all his responsibility. And that panel of Erwin standing atop all of those bodies, alone, is so telling. It highlights the blood on his hands, the sacrifices, and it shows his humanity. Erwin isn't heartless. He's felt the loss of every single member, and each of their lives are his responsibility, no one else's. That's the solitude. He's not up there with Levi or with Pixis. Erwin alone has had to climb a ladder of corpses to achieve a dream, and in that time he's been lying to himself and lying to his friends, to the people he cares about, saying that it has been for humanity when it hasn't. And even now, when it's time to fight, time to dedicate his heart, he still wants to lie to himself one final time. And as he tells his captain his plan, Erwin holds on to that dream for the last time, as Levi makes the decision for him. And what was so moving to me was that Erwin thanks him. I saw this as Erwin finally being given the okay to let go of that dream. I think Erwin was finally free at that moment, and that's what made his speech all the more inspiring. He was leading a group of people to their deaths and to his own, and I think he was just as afraid as they were, which is why he could say exactly what they needed to hear. Maybe Erwin wasn't a demon, but a commander who, just like the others, risked his life for humanity. And then again, maybe he was a demon. Whether he was or not, at this moment, it didn't matter. This was one time where he truly believed he was fighting for humanity. It wasn't a lie anymore. He was dedicating himself to and for it. This arc also sheds light on the relationship between Levi and Erwin. Levi was an underground rebel who has now become humanity's strongest soldier. Like Aaron once thought about Levi, he doesn't seem like the type of person who would be obedient to his superiors, especially given what we know about his youth and his personality. And Aaron was right. Levi doesn't obey his superiors, except for one man. If Levi always saw Erwin as someone who was selfless, someone who was dedicated to humanity, that's someone Levi could respect and follow, something he doesn't do easily. Through their interactions, Levi always puts emphasis on how he trusts Erwin's judgment, because of the man Erwin is. We know from Levi's actions that he is someone who values each and every life. Behind his cold gaze, Levi is empathetic and compassionate. Levi has proven to be someone who fights for humanity, and has offered his skills up for humanity's freedom. But in Levi's other interactions with Erwin, such as seeing him and that smile at the fact that the Titans could have once been human, or being told outright that the truth is more important than humanity, Levi still follows him afterwards. Levi must know and believe that Erwin still wants to see humanity win, for him to trust him and to follow him after those words were uttered. But it's more than just simple trust. It's immeasurable respect, belief, and faith, because of the years they've spent together, how far they've come, alive. Erwin is more than just his commander, but his true friend. He is a pillar of hope and necessity for Levi. It was Erwin who gave him an opportunity to be more than a rebel. He saw Levi for who he could have been. And for Erwin, Levi is someone he can trust, and someone who will trust him no matter the situation. A true mature bond built off mutual respect, and one that began with support. I've stated quite a bit that it takes a lot for Levi to trust and how much he trusts Erwin, but in that moment, Erwin took the leap of faith this time, putting his full trust and his torn heart into Levi's hands. This was Erwin trusting his friend's judgment, without a second thought, as Levi has done for him all of these years. All this to say that Levi choosing to make that decision for his friend proved that he knew the internal battle his commander was facing. Levi absolved Erwin from the guilt he would have to carry, having to choose between his father and the dream they shared, and his memory against humanity's fate. With that, Levi allowed Erwin to finally be the hero he never saw himself as, the hero he desperately needed to be, for his own peace of mind and for his heart. And that wouldn't be the last act of good faith out of Levi. As mentioned, Attack on Titan is a series that questions human nature, and with that it questions morality. It looks at intentions against actions, temporary pain for the pleasure of those who will come. But it is important to note that no individual character is motivated solely for the good of humanity. Each character is motivated by their own ideals, whether that be freedom, family, revenge, or a personal dream. Erwin, for that reason, is so interesting. Is he selfish or selfless? Good or evil? Did Erwin purposefully send these soldiers to their deaths and use them as sacrifices? Was it the guilt of actually doing that, or was it the pressure of being commander, having actual survivors' guilt that made him believe that he was a demon for humanity? Maybe these soldiers, including Erwin himself, actually shared the same risk, the same possibility of death having been in the Survey Corps. But again, maybe only a demon for humanity could find a way to slay the Titans. Maybe Erwin has left behind his humanity. This is a commander who is tasked with saving all of mankind, but he's also just a flawed human who wants to do right by his fallen father. Again, a death that he caused. Erwin's burden is so heavy, and there are all of these questions that Erwin himself doesn't even know. And that conflict makes him so well written. Having these underlying motivations, these selfish goals, and teetering on the line between altruistic actions and egotistic ones is what makes him human. The commander had his own goals, but he recognized his hubris. Humans are complex. Erwin is both selfish and selfless. To categorize him as being one or the other would be to ignore all of the times he's shown the ability to charge towards his goals, but also ignore the times he's truly cared for others. Kenny, in his dying moments, told Levi that everyone is drunk off something. Whether it be booze itself, power, or dreams, that's what keeps them going. I think Erwin's dreams were able to support the weight of his guilt. And not only was it able to support that weight, but it was the sole thing carrying him forward, as he states the amount of times he wanted to give up. For the amount of deaths that Erwin has seen and that we've seen, we become a little more desensitized after each one. They don't have time to mourn and to grieve these deaths. And this goes tenfold for the one who is command of all of them. Only someone who was drunk off something could survive such a burden, and that burden became unbearable the closer he was to the truth. The people who are capable of changing things are the ones who can throw away everything dear to them. When forced to face down monsters, they can leave behind even their humanity. This really illustrates perfectly the man that Erwin Smith was. Erwin was relentless in the pursuit of his dream. As a result of his drive and of his resolve, Erwin was relentless in his defense for humanity. The Survey Corps bought into Erwin Smith and into humanity. Through his words and through his actions, he made them believe that they were fighting for humanity, truly. His soldiers fight, scream, and rage. That right there is why he was chosen to become commander. That's what makes Erwin Smith anything but average. Again, the commander was even able to reach Levi, the rebel, who he later trusted to use the Titan serum when it was time to make that decision. I think Levi let Erwin rest for his own selfish desire. Levi chose to use the serum on Armin, not because it was better for humanity, but because it sent his dear friend off in glory and in sacrifice, freeing Erwin from the shackles of his dream. His final act of friendship. A friendship that began with Erwin's outstretched arm. All of the advancements that the Survey Corps made, they began with Erwin Smith's leadership, and they ended with his bravery. Now it was time for the devil to atone for his sacrifices. Time for Erwin Smith to rest. In death, that quote by Armin especially rings true. Because for Erwin, if throwing away his life and his dream is what would have brought change, he was willing to do it. To die for it. For humanity. This video has kindly been sponsored by Audible. In these times,
Sage's Reign, everybody! Sage's Reign!
Books to read and challenging myself to read more.
Fuck Audible.
But finding it a little hard to sit down and actually read.
Find all the pictures online.
Audible and audiobooks have made the reading experience more intimate.
Encore!
When you're actually hearing the words
Encore!
being read to you. Listening to audiobooks while I'm doing other things just makes life a whole lot easier for me. Audible has thousands and thousands of titles, and a whole bunch of genres, ranging from my favorite book series ever, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. The
kid is phenomenal. Another one. This video is sponsored by Audible.
beach is one of my favorite episodes. I feel like I say that a lot, but I like it for two very deep and emotional reasons. The first one being that it's a beach episode, and the second is that there's a lot of Azula. And as an avid Azula stan, that shouldn't come as a surprise. And as much as I love the cool fight sequences and inventive bending in this episode, I didn't really care what the gang was doing. I wanted that sweet teenage angst. It's clear that the beach excels because of its characterization. In this episode, we learn what the Fire Nation children do when they're not chasing down the Avatar. We've already seen the gang lounge around and be kids. Now we get to see the other side of the equation. Beginning with Mei and Ty Lee, from the get-go, they were never on the same level as Azula. While allied with the princess, I never feared them or considered them as truly evil as I did with Azula. They never carried that same intensity. In this episode, we see Mei and Ty Lee act in accordance with what we've seen before. Mei being reserved and stoic, and Ty Lee being happy-go-lucky, attracting all of the Fire Nation guys at the beach. The beach does play on the tropes of teenagers, and these two fill their roles quite accordingly. However, where things change is that we get a deeper look into why their personalities are the way that they are. Mei, the once only child whose family was rich, downplays her personal issues. The loneliness and solitude she's had to deal with as a result of controlling parents explains her whole demeanor. Azula says that she is afraid of caring, but she proved over the course of this episode that she does care about Zuko, but she won't let his hardships justify his behavior, as demonstrated in the way that she doesn't put up with his outbursts of anger, but she still does stay by his side. Mei might be afraid of caring and expressing herself, but she doesn't shy away from expressing love, as she proves not only in this episode, but in the Boiling Rock as well. Moving on to Ty Lee, we see the first glimpse of her past when Azula tells her that the guys that have been swooning over her don't actually like her for her, which immediately brings her to tears. Later on in that episode, we learn that Ty Lee chases individuality, and because of a lack of it, as a result of being a sibling who looks just like her 5 sisters, she craves attention, and explains her joining the circus. So Azula telling her that people don't care for who she actually is goes deeper than just some boys. What I also found interesting about Ty Lee is that before she tells this story, Zuko burns his family photo and she interjects. She thinks he does care about that family photo and that she does truly know him. Ty Lee and Mei have been friends with the royal family since childhood, and Ty Lee being part of a match set, not being recognized for her own talents, not being given attention, considering this, maybe she does know a bit about what Zuko is going through, who is the older, weaker sibling to a firebending prodigy, the one who got all of Ozai's attention. This demonstrated that Ty Lee is someone who is not only cheerful but empathetic as well. Speaking of Zuko, this episode was significant for him. The beach comes in at the 5th entry in this season, and it highlights the Fire Nation prince a few days after his return to the Fire Nation. Zuko should have his life in order. The Avatar has been killed, and his honor has been restored. As he said, Ozai talks to him now. He's under the Fire Lord's good graces, and he isn't being hunted by his own family. Again, things should be normal. I once said that Zuko alone saw the Fire Nation prince at his lowest. Though after watching the beach again, it's so clear to me that this is truly his lowest moment. Zuko's only ever had one goal in his life, and it's been regaining his honor. It's been hammered into our brains since episode 1, and he did it. His father says he's proud of him, his goal is fulfilled, but he's so empty and lost. In this episode, he's so volatile and fragile. He's jealous even. Zuko is so threatened when Mei talks to another guy because Mei is the last person by his side. Zuko's throwing fits of desperation. He's holding on to this relationship because it's the last thing that he has. Ember Island, this little vacation, is just reminding Zuko of how much his life has changed, how alone he is. When he enters their old vacation home, the crown prince picks up family photos, and he sees memories of a time where his father accepted him. He sees his face and he isn't scarred. His father hasn't burned him yet. He sees his photo and his mother's there. This is what normal looks like. He thinks back to his youth, the times he spent with Uncle Iroh and Luten, a relationship that he failed. Ember Island is not a vacation for Zuko. It's a place of painful memories, adding fuel to his anger. And he projects all of that guilt and rage and anguish onto everyone around him. As we get to the end of the episode, they all ask him why and who he's so angry at. And of course he says that he is angry at himself, as the fire that he built rages. He's not angry at Ozai because he finally knows that his honor was never taken away by his father. But by turning his back on his uncle, the one person who's had faith in him from the beginning, the one person who's been by his side, Zuko threw away his own honor that day in the Crystal Catacombs. The Crown Prince is so angry because, for the first time, he is truly without honor. But by admitting this and understanding this, he's turning the corner, as he seeks Iroh's guidance in the very next episode. The beach is Zuko's first step towards redemption. Last but not least, Azula. The Princess of the Fire Nation for me brings this episode together because of her much needed humanization. After a full season of her relentless pursuit of the gang, we've come to associate Azula and her chilling theme with evil, sometimes even more so than Ozai. This 14-year-old just took down Ba Sing Se in weeks. She killed the Avatar, and 5 episodes later, we see her in this new light. Of course, the first half is the princess in typical Azula fashion dominating the volleyball game. But as we get to the party, she's so out of her element. The princess can barely speak without it sounding horribly awkward, and she needs to learn how to be a teenager. Though when she does manage to get Chan's attention and a kiss, she ruins it moments later. Yeah, she's a terrifying firebender, but this reminds us that Azula is still a kid. She makes bad jokes and she gets jealous just like any other teenager, just like any other person. But aside from her clumsy interactions, Azula shows her heart. When she gets jealous of Ty Lee, she makes her cry and immediately apologizes after seeing how her words affected Ty Lee. Later, when Zuko is taken back by the memories of their former home, Azula actively looks for him and invites him back down to the beach, removing him from the depressing memories of that place. Azula knows what happened to her brother, what those pictures are reminding him of, how things used to be. Finally, when she laughs at Zuko calling Ty Lee a circus freak, Azula genuinely seems to feel bad about it. All of these moments help in humanizing her, showing that she is a person who does feel guilt and sympathy. However, she contradicts this by calling Zuko pathetic, laughing at Ty Lee, making fun of May, and claiming that all of their issues were sob stories, as if she isn't a victim herself. In Azula's revelation that her mother thought she was a monster, it made me think back to those clumsy and awkward exchanges at the party. The Princess of the Fire Nation can barely interact with others if it isn't about Fire Nation politics. When she's not cutting into Long Feng with terrifying precision, she's just awkward. Azula doesn't know how to be a teenager. All she knows is how to conquer, and it even leaks into her moment with Chan. It was funny in the moment, but in retrospect, tragic. She doesn't know how to talk to people when she's not trying to manipulate them. More than that, this episode highlighted that Azula doesn't have her own identity aside from what other people have deemed her as. Azula believed that her mother thought she was a monster, and because Ursa wasn't there to mend that relationship, that's what she became. She felt like her mother loved Zuko more than her. Because of that, Azula sought out her father's acceptance and love, and he loved power and domination. Ozai wanted a winner, a perfect monster, so that's what she became. Zuko, Ty Lee, and Mei all have their own identities. We saw from Ty Lee's story that it's clear she craves individuality. Mei seems to be comfortable with who she is, and Zuko is currently cultivating his own identity. Ty Lee calls Azula beautiful, smart, and perfect, but at this point it's too late. No one tells her that she isn't a monster, that she doesn't have to be perfect to have worth. Azula instead accepts and agrees that she is indeed one, because that's the only thing she's ever seen herself as, and it has invaded her personality. I think the worst part is that she knows it, but she doesn't fight it. She can't fight it. So she accepts it, because in accepting that, it will bring her what she desires. Love, even if it is from Ozai. The fact that she didn't feel her mother's love and brushes it off is so telling. At the same time, Azula is being manipulated by Ozai the very same way she manipulates others. It's why she calls their stories sob stories, and why she calls her brother pathetic. Zuko is coming to the realization of who their father truly is, and what he'd done to them, but she hasn't. How could she? Her father has molded his daughter into a monster built to fight, built to win. It's an obsession. And it's even more tragic when she loses the final fight with Zuko, because when Azula loses, who exactly is she then? What is she? Those final 10 minutes, not only for the Fire Nation royals, but for the gang as well, brings us back into reality. Both parties have spent the day relaxing, being kids, having fun for once. But as the night rolls around, the reality of war settles in, physically and emotionally. The gang gets attacked by Combustion Man, and the Fire Nation kids are all opening emotional wounds. Particularly Aang, Katara, and Sokka, as well as Zuko and Azula, they are victims of this war. They're not all equal, but they've all been hurt by it in some way or another. Whether it be a physical scar or a loss of identity, each of them between 12 and 16. The beach for me was a longing to sit with the awkward Zuko, the bubbly Ty Lee, the reserved Mei, and the socially inept Azula, just for a little bit longer. I wanted to see these kids, all of them, just be kids. But it's clear that for both parties, the war has taken that away from them. This video has been sponsored by Audible.
Sage's Reign! Sage's Reign!
Of audiobooks.
Encore!
At the
Encore!
beginning of my search for new books to read, I found it difficult to find time to sit down and actually read.
This kid is
Listening
fucking
to audiobooks
phenomenal.
while I'm doing other things just makes life a whole lot easier for me. Right now I'm listening to audiobooks of my favorite titles, and it has become a new experience for me. I just finished listening to Rick Riordan's The Lightning Thief, and now I'm on to The Sea of Monsters. Jesse Bernstein's Percy makes a lot of sense to me, and it breathes new life into this series that I already love. Audible has a bunch of genres, and like I said,
I gotta go take a
thousands of
shit. I'll be back.